Start recording. So we have a variety. We've done a variety of stuff with Vue so far, right? We've also done a variety of stuff with React so far. What's one thing we've done with React that we haven't done with Vue yet?
Multiple pages.
Multiple pages. We're not
multiple components.
Oh, we've done multiple components. Multiple pages works very similar. There's something called Vue Router. They use the exact same idea. The other thing we haven't done in Vue yet is APIs, right? We haven't pulled in data from an API. So what has been our favorite API project so far? Favorite API? Movies?
Yeah.
Weather? You can do the weather. Weather. Callback, right?
Weather or not.
Let's do puppies. I love the puppies. Let's.
We can fetch from them.
Yeah, we can.
Proxy.
Yes, we can use what's called a proxy to fetch from it. But let's do the movies because that's still fresh in our head and a lot of fun to do. So let's do. So we're going to Vue create Vue movies. A little bit of a pun there, right?
No, I think you did there. Hello, me.
Not seeing that. It's there. Where's that movie? What's movie?
Yeah. So let's create a Vue site that allows us to see what's showing. So very similar to your weekend project, right? It's going to be a one page. It's going to call out to the movie API, and whenever it comes back, it's going to display all the movies that are now showing. So this is going to be some sort of fetch, because remember, fetch is just JavaScript. We're going to have some sort of on-loaded, on-mounted, on something event, so whenever the component's ready event. And we're going to have some sort of list feature, or like some sort of map, or for loop, or for each loop, or something like that, to display all the movies. Is it done yet?
Here, do me a favor, don't move. You gotta get that t-shirt.
Oh, wow. Get master?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, I need to get this t-shirt.
I was trying to listen to you, but I was too busy looking at the things on your face.
That t-shirt was pretty cool.
That's a t-shirt right there. Gonna have to...
It was too perfect.
It was. I love it. CD Vue movies. Let's open let's open this thing up. Not over there. So let's head on over here to our components. Let's create a new component. Let's do our initial commit. Init Vue commit. That was a lot of commits. Do you know why there's a lot of commits? Because I'm in my lecture notes repository. So that was all the commits from everything else. Components, what was I doing? I'm going to make a new component. We'll call this movie list.vue. Scaffold out everything we need. I'm going to scope our style because I'm cool like that.
It's your scaffold. That was an Adam. I haven't tried it in VS Code. Adam's scaffold thing. It gave me the HTML thing.
Yeah, the types and stuff like that. So, fun fact, what you can do, whenever you set up a new Vue app, we're just going to do this real fast. And why that's important, Mike, is that whenever you can actually change what features you have inside your app. So you can actually have a template that has, the router already built in. It has a CSS preprocessor. What?
UX? Is that the Redux?
Yeah. Vuex. Vuex? VX. And then we're not going to use that. Yes. You can pick a preprocessor. So this is a different CSS language that compiles down in CSS. So that tag will help Vue identify what language that the HTML is in, what language the CSS is in, and what language the JavaScript is actually in.
So if you scaffold with those settings, then it should automatically input it?
Yeah.
So, so what do you do with preprocessors, CSS preprocessors? What
So
is
CSS preprocessors are CSS as a language actually sucks.
Sort of thing that feels
Like comparatively speaking to other languages, it's lacking a lot of features that we like. For loops, conditionals, objects, variables, stuff like that. So what happened was that these CSS preprocessors came in and said, hey, we're going to introduce a lot of these features that we like from other languages inside of CSS. And we're going to use our language to write CSS.
There's a lot of functions coming into CSS now, aren't there?
I was just about to say, CSS3 is really catching up to what a lot of those CSS preprocessors do. One big thing is variables. We haven't touched on it yet, but you can actually put variables inside of your CSS. So if you wanted to reuse the same color green in multiple things, instead of carrying that hash code or that RGB or HSL everywhere and having it in multiple places, you can define it in one place and use it as a variable.
It's good for designers if they want.
It's good for everybody. Yeah, just to look. I know this is way off the side. Sorry. Oh, don't be. So you notice here's the router stuff. Router link. Looks like React Router, right?
Right.
We have a router link instead of a route. And we say, hey, link to home and about.
I did notice when I was watching a video the other day that somebody that was doing Vue separated their things in a different, so like their template and their scripts and everything were in different pages than each other. I'm sure.
Oh yeah, you could. Here's the other part of the router where it says, hey, here's the path, here's the home, here's the component.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah, so it does a lot of the grunt work for setting up router stuff for you.
So can you go to the end,
The what?
end environment? Go down. Well, where is it calling from? Because up there it says base is process.end.base URL. Where's that end coming from?
The
Ooh.
environment?
Yeah, where is that coming from? This is our first kind of exposure to this.
Because usually it's on the same level source, right?
Yeah, usually, sometimes not with process.env. So process.env is JavaScript environment variables.
So is that a .env file hidden?
It's not a hidden .env file. This is looking at the current system that it's running on, looking at their environment variables and seeing if the value base URL exists.
So is it like when you
So, for example, Windows machines, we've all had a Windows machine at some point inside of our lives, right? Have we ever heard of something called the path variable? Where you sometimes add an executable to, and then something would work and magic happens? Well, the path variable is an environment variable. That's a variable that every application on your machine can see. So that process.env is how Node and JavaScript sees the current machine's environment. So this is going to look at my dev machine, that thing, and go, is there a base URL set configured inside of the environments? If there is, use it. If not, don't. Then it's nothing.
So this is in the environment. There's a string called base_URL, and it's basically returning the value
Yep.
associated with that.
Mhm.
So that's the same thing as in Linux or Unix
Yeah,
path
yep.
and the various paths.
This isn't a big concept in front-end design and front-end development because we don't have access to their environment. And this process.env is running on the machine that builds it. So the end user's machine is not building it, right? They're just running it. Whose machine is building it?
Server.
Mine. Or a server, something that we have control over as developers. So we can set that per environment. So yeah, good observation.
So you could put a .env in there and then have a base URL?
So the .env file is something different. It allows you to set environment variables per directory, but you have to read it first. And all of this environment variables and configuration nonsense is more so back-end engineering than front-end engineering. So give it a week.
I guess you would have to work with DevOps to set up the environment.
Yes, working with DevOps is fun.
They're good people.
They are. They're great people. I love my DevOps guys. Worked at a job that had a DevOps person for the first time. Loved it. No going back. If I ever get a software job again, I'm going to request that we have a DevOps person. Straight up. What is DevOps?
Thank you, question.
What? Yeah. So
Third party.
That's what Daniel's father-in-law?
yeah, his name is
Tim.
Tim. Yeah, Tim. It's what Tim is. So over the years, websites were hosted on machines, right? Like back in
They're still hosted on machines.
yeah, over the year, but like way back when it started, it was like a server in the closet. Like it was literally like a computer that was plugged into the wall in someone's closet. Wasn't anything crazy. If I wanted to deploy a new version of my site, I just copy over my HTML files to that. You know, like, oh, new HTML, new CSS, new JavaScript. We've advanced since then. So now our websites are hosted typically in the cloud somewhere, in some structured, controlled environment, using another alphabet soup of technologies and terminologies. Firewalls, Dockers, Kubernetes, AWS Cloud, Apache. There's so much more than that even. Because now you have to worry about some sort of SSL certs. So there's a whole bunch more than just some HTML files on a computer in the server. Developers can handle that. They can do that. And a lot of developers know how to deploy something to the cloud. They know how to set up a build process that pulls your latest version from GitHub, builds it, and then publish it someplace. Like that's fine and dandy. But what ended up happening was that process of managing the infrastructure for a website became a full-time job. So developers were no longer developing, they were now managing pipeline and doing all of that stuff, not creating. So out of a necessity, a new role came onto the market called DevOps. And pretty much a DevOps is a person who knows development, but also knows IT and infrastructure. And they're the glue that has developers go from what I'm doing to actually deploying it out to the real world.
You said something about GitHub pulling and then building and then pushing.
Yeah.
Is that, I've heard this term, continuous integration, is that what that is?
Yep, so a DevOps person would be responsible for setting up a continuous integration server. What continuous integration means is that as soon as we update GitHub with the latest version of code, there's some server out there that goes and grabs the latest code, builds it, whatever the build processes are, whether it's a .NET compile or a React Webpack building process. And once it's built, it's going to take that code and deploy it out to production environment. So production is always the latest.
Providing it passes the test.
Yeah. Then you put up gatekeepers for, does it pass the test? So do you have tests for your website? Is there any sort of validation you need to get a senior developer to write off on it? Is there any sort of linter style code style to pass or fail? So that process can get expanded a lot. Because now it's no longer just pull from GitHub and deploy to production. It's now pull from GitHub, run the tests, run the styles, notify Jim and Sue who have to approve it, notify the QA team to deploy to the QA environment, have the QA team sign off on it, and then go grab that one and deploy to production. Or not even to production, deploy it to a beta, see if it works in production, and then deploy it to production. So now there's the whole infrastructure around just managing code. And that's what DevOps is.
So is DevOps like a term or a company?
It is a term.
It's a
Short for
philosophy.
developer operations.
So it's continuous integration, continuous delivery.
Yes. It was pretty much.
Buzzword, buzzword.
Yeah, buzzword,
So
buzzword.
that's pretty
Yeah,
much.
they're interchangeable.
So
Pretty much.
you said you deploy to, I mean, you said you upload to GitHub, and they kind of take that from there and deploy it to the web. Is it a normal occurrence that you deploy, that you upload to GitHub code that's going to go out there?
That's the
or-
ideal.
That's the idea.
That's the ideal. That's what. So that's what a lot of companies are moving towards. And that's what, like, if I'm setting up a new project, that's what I do.
Even if it's going to be public there.
Because that's the source code, but actually when it runs somewhere. So a small example is my portfolio. My portfolio site is hosted on GitHub. If I update that, I have a CI server that's sitting there saying, "Hey, did this get updated? If this gets updated, grab it, build it, deploy it." Yeah, so it's one of those things like I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to sit here going yarn build, then search, deploy, and stuff like that. It's awesome, but to get that infrastructure set up was a lot of work. You know, there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of systems you have to integrate, you have to see what's going on, a lot of testing, a lot of validation.
Somebody did it, and you kind of
Yeah,
contract them to do it for you. CSI, you call it?
CI.
CI?
So, and that is a very hot career path right now. That's almost like a level 2 backend course. We won't go too deep into DevOps here, but it is something that you should get into if you're interested in that kind of thing. It doesn't tickle my fancy, but I know people who love it. So Catherine's husband is a DevOps guy. So if you see him wandering around, you can chat with him about it.
Movie list.
Movie list, say.
Yeah.
Movie list. So we're not going to do this here. How did we even get there? How did we even get there? Movie list. Movie view. Here we go. Movie list. Section. Section. Header. Now showing. So what I'm doing here is the first step of any new project, right? We are getting what's the HTML that we want to see.
Header, and then, the images, and title images.
Yep. So we're
There's a
gonna,
new section for that.
yep, some sort of list. Nope, not a label.
Title.
No, we're developers in 2018. We use lists.
See?
Direction.
B now for the title.
It's
Span.
it's a list. It is a list.
I'm gonna go retro.
I hate it.
Don't worry, it always goes full circle. We'll be back to the table.
How do you take off the default margin? Like, once you take the bullet point off, there's a margin that it sticks in CSS.
Margin 0.
Margin 0?
Yeah, you have to force it there. I hate using H1s and lists because they have
they have
free
some.
CSS.
You notice that all my headers are not H1s or H6s. They're headers. That's because the default styling that we get from the browser, I don't care for. And I'm like, I want to style it myself.
I mean, when I'm in this phase, I could do H1, H2 because it just shows something better.
Yep.
But then you want to change it.
Placeholder images. Have y'all ever seen this site? Let's see if this works.
Rose.
It's called Place Kitten. It's good for placeholder images. It's placekitten.com/height and width. So now showing, and then what else do we get from now showing? That we want to display. Genre.
So that website is just a couple pages, a couple images.
Just a bunch of
Big
I'm
one,
assuming
and that's
it's
it.
random images of cats.
It is. Genre. There probably is a puppy one too.
Place puppies.
Lace.
Place puppies.
So now that we have our movie list, we actually want to use our movie list component, right? Movie list. We need to import it and use it. I don't care for this logo.
Can you make a spin?
I could. I can make
No,
it
no,
spin.
no, not spin,
No.
360, no, not 360, but I guess horizontally, not,
Spin on the Z
You mean
axis.
flip?
yeah, I guess,
I think you can with CSS.
That's what.
feet, please. Stick to the V.
But then it will be like a flat.
We have 22 minutes to get through this. We'll do it.
It will be like a flat, right?
Yeah, so let's serve this up. What's the movie API? It was the movie.
IVD.
It wasn't. It was the movie database.
So yes.
Was that?
The JMM.
Oh, yeah, like, yeah,
Place,
okay,
okay,
I've
got
gotten
that.
that too.
Place, puppy, puppy.net. Oh, so what, puppy.com we can find.
Yeah, I just don't think I'm gonna do Vue because I don't like to copy and
No,
paste
no, this is the
URL.
Puppy list?
I'm just
Puppy
gonna
place,
put it on
thanks,
the window.
puppy.net.
Way too much.
So movie
And
list.
somebody just takes that and just hit it, and I guess you get some.
And I need to get my key and everything like that.
Please drop.
When I was trying to do routing with the random selector, like I pulled the values, but just placing the value into the routing field didn't work to make it clickable. Like it didn't matter if it was the exact ID as the movie. Because I didn't get it from, because I didn't pull it from the movie exactly, it was just, replacing that ID in.
For your router?
Yeah.
Yeah,
with a
we'll
random selector.
look at that.
Router makes it.
Our router does make things harder, but it doesn't have to. So we have our now showing. We have a list of stuff. Let's do some basic styling. Let's get rid of the margins and the list item. So it would be UL, list style, none. And then LI, margin 0. Does that look off?
Yeah. It's not. Well, you're not justified.
Why is
I think the
not
UL
showing
has a
up?
margin.
Display flex,
I think the UL has margin, but
adding 0.
Well, it's your header that's not doing it right.
Display flex, justify content center. And I want to do flex direction row. If I say row, I mean column.
You can just call them
Oh,
rows.
line items.
So it's now doing it. It's now doing what I want it to do.
See,
Do column reverse.
Vue did that yesterday with my buttons. It made all my buttons really fast. I don't know.
I don't think that's Vue. I think that's
I don't think it
CSS.
was. I don't know. It was weird. I've never seen it do that before. And I wasn't doing anything different than I normally do.
So
Well, yeah, I understand how it works, but it was just naturally doing it with no padding added to it. I
it's
thought
because
maybe-
it's Mark, it's because it's justified content, not line items. But
The server input traffic.
it's supposed to be a line item.
because we switched the axis.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now you don't even need the next step.
There we go. There we go. Now showing the header needs a little bit of a thing here. You are.
can you have an
I
enclosed see
want
in the CSS,
No, I mean,
in the
it's
CSS
included in
section.
the fast one.
You should be able to.
So you can have global CSS styles in there.
Yep.
Okay.
Padding, PM, border, 4 pixels, yellow.
Like people are just like, didn't know the whole Bootstrap library.
There we go. All right, so we have. Let's get rid of this too.
You can upload
This is so long on the screen.
You can upload templates.
Yep.
And then get some-
Margin tabs.
Da, 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 da. All right, now showing. We have our list of now showing, which is awesome, right? So let's do added skeleton for API calls. So now we need to update and show. We need to go do our fetch, right?
Let's use Axios.
Axios.
Yeah, Chris was spreading rumors yesterday that fetch is bad.
Axios is good.
It's not bad. It's just lower level. It's lower level than Axios.
Wow.
It is. Axios is super powerful.
When I say lower level, I mean you have to manipulate it more to do what you want for errors. But we don't use those errors, so fetching is fine.
We don't need to do
Spreading lots of
So
rumors.
side tangent on this. This is we have someone who said we have a library. I found a library that does something so much better. It's worth a look at, but it's not the end all be all. Like I've also used Axios. It's a great library. I've used it before for projects, but Fetch solves all my use cases.
I heard Regex is too powerful.
Regex.
Regex.
Yeah, to call and or something, it's like an overkill.
Axios.
No, Regex
Like in general.
and functions or something like. It's too.
Yeah, Regex is
It's 10
ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Something fast.
So our fetch
Goes in this script.
Yep,
Script section.
goes in the script. Why does it go in the script? Because it's behavior, right? We're doing something.
JavaScript.
Where does it go?
You can just go anywhere after
So
the
in React, where did it go in React? If this was a React app,
component didn't build.
component did mount. So what is component did mount?
Function.
That says what?
When the
When the
script.
page life cycle.
Mhm. So it was something inside the lifecycle, right? So it's like, hey, whenever this thing was mounted, do this. Excuse me. Well, over here, our object that we have has a property called mounted.
Oh, son of
That's
Wow, it's still there.
Yeah,
I love the big guy.
well, really, I love VS Code. Oops.
mounted.
VS Code is great. I really don't like that.
It's okay. So now, so we see, hey, mounted. It means that our component is added to the page. Now we have some place where we can actually tie in logic. So let's tie in some fetchiness.
I just have a random question. Every time you go onto the console.log in Vue, it comes up with that waiting for update signal thing. What does that mean?
So Vue, its development environment does hot loading, which means so that web server that's sitting on 8081 is listening to your code. And every time your code changes, it pushes that changes up to the site.
So it's just letting us know that it's constantly watching it?
This is just saying, hey, it's connected.
Use errors messages are different.
They're different.
I haven't quite figured out how they work yet.
Yeah, for views, they're different, and they don't say which line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
It
they-
does.
What
they
they
say-
do is just it's hard to find. It's in
Yeah, it's
different
hard.
spots.
It's in a different spot. Yes.
Oh, I'm gonna find out.
What is a port? No, I'm joking.
You don't have to use.
Keep going. 15 minutes.
You know how to distract me well. I will say this. So yeah, I need my API key real fast. Movie Snag it. Don't use my key.
I know what movies I'm
Key
looking.
to see
I know what movies I'm looking at with that key.
Yeah, good ones.
Kid video.
Great movies.
Yeah, kid
Disney
videos.
only.
I'm actually going through all my old movies right now, and like converting it from VHS to a digital. So I'm watching a lot of like my classic ones. It takes me back to my childhood. So we're fetching here. Response. Response.json. .then.
Chris was talking about you only need one dot then with Axios.
You do. You 100% do. But it's not as flexible. I mean, it is flexible. It's like speaking like Portuguese and Spanish. You're speaking a language and you're communicating your ideas as to how you want to communicate them.
Okay.
Maybe
So
if you
normally
ask,
we would just stay here.
yeah. So it maybe if you ask that to review it too, we can actually convert this to use Axios. And that would be an example of how to pull in a package from an external source and use it.
So we're not setting the state here because there is no state.
Right. What do we do here? We have
So we need to set something from our object, from our data, our little data.
Yeah. So we're getting it. So we have our data object now.
But you gotta put it somewhere.
And you just say object data equals data.
Data equals data.
Or so return movies. Okay. Results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Now we can go to
Hmm.
our new developer tool.
we can, if I had them installed on this browser.
You build.
I do, but it's on my other instance. Whoop. Yeah. So I head over here to my view tools. Inside of my app, I have my movie list, and I have a movies that has an array of 20 objects. And each object has all the data that I care about. I'll do that. That's pretty cool. So now, oh, yes?
Sorry, when you in React, when you set state, it re-renders, right? So
Mhm.
in this case, when you set this dot movies, or when you set movies to this dot whatever, this dot data,
Yep.
what does that do?
So
Does that do
it's,
anything?
so whenever we did movies in data on line 36, we're saying, hey view, I want you to watch this array called movies. Right? And now that array of movies has getters and setters on it that are observing it for any changes. So we haven't changed it yet. Once we change it, it's going to kick off and it will update whatever is in that virtual DOM that is also pointing to by movies. So we haven't done anything with it yet. But it's saying, but once we will, we're saying, hey, whenever this is updated, go update this over in the DOM. So it's triggering a re-render or a redraw of the page, but it's not actually calling like a render function. What? 10 minutes? 9 minutes. Whew, time's a ticking. So we have our fetch. Nothing too crazy, right? Looks familiar. We already know how to do it. Now, how do we display them? Wow. A map down. So we're going to be using something new called a V4. And it's a for loop. Remember how in week 2 we discussed for loops?
Oh, because there's no JSX in this.
Right.
Right, okay.
So we're going to say for movie in movies. Oh man. Just like in React, we also need a key. Bind key. What's something unique in an object? Hey, an ID. Perfect. So we're saying, hey, for each movie in movies, we name the movie whatever we want. Movies, comes from our data object down here, wherever that is, right? We're saying for each move, for each thing in movies, repeat this li. So we no longer need all of these. This is one we're defining the template for what a movie looks like. So Toy Story is the movie title, movie.title. The source is no longer this. It is,
You're gonna need to get IMDb.
And then poster pad.
yeah. And then genre is going out on a limb here. Movie genre.
Probably.
It's got like
Oh, is it? It would have that. Genre IDs.
Oh, this is gonna be.
It should be at the end. No gender?
gender
No, just
for
change for popularity.
Let's do release girl movies.
Yeah, let's do
That's
Well, because I guess it can fall under more than.
Don't assume,
more diverse.
don't assume the gender of this movie.
It's a chick flick.
I think Mission Impossible would be cool for the kid.
Let's do adult.
I think they're. I was thinking adult, but I think they're all false. Because I think it actually means adult movies.
It does.
Oh.
What else could it be?
Oh, come on now, Chris.
What else could it be?
I don't know, R-rated.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was seeing if there's any was actually like any.
There is a genre there, I thought.
There is a
Action.
genre, but it's IDs.
Yeah, it doesn't show. Oh,
So let's
You
just.
can use those IDs later to go.
Let's say, let's just
I'm
skip
already-
all this. How would we do this? We have the IDs now. We have the IDs of genres. How would we get the genres?
We'd have to do another fetch for genres using that ID code.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I haven't seen the API. That'll be a good review too thing. Kind of look, see how we do that. In the meantime, let's do release date.
I demand a correct picture.
All right.
Has to be.
you demand.
Demand. Must have it.
Was it the movie DB?
See criticism.
I don't know.
The base is like IMDb.
Yeah, I'm grabbing the base right now.
I think that's just it right there.
We gotta do the
But it's
details
movie,
page
not
in
BB.
3 minutes.
Hmm?
We gotta do the details page.
You still gotta do louder.
in
Do the
the
video
past.
page and we can just switch a project from React to Vue, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to.
Converter.
Can,
Those guys
Just take this and turn it
Bet-
into
hugging
video.
on
Benchmarks
the
project.
And they're hugging the bandwidth.
Storage room. Storage room boys are hogging all our.
You can get it from one of ours GitHub maybe.
what do you think I was just about to do?
Look at all my stuff.
Is that it? Then we go?
Keep pictures on the side.
Yeah. I just look at themes.
It's the best one. Especially if you're looking at CSS.
Started.
What are you looking for? Pictures?
Yeah, pictures. Am I just not seeing it?
Go up.
Yeah, it's up in the
It's in
image,
images.
it's in that
There it
little
is.
thing there,
There it is. Yep.
smaller letters. So your demand is gonna
Had to be done. Sorry, guys.
be done.
You
No,
know,
no.
you know, you felt the same way.
Yeah, I did. And was it poster image?
Poster
Poster pad underscore.
Can you do that?
Oh,
Boom.
Nope, I cannot.
Plus the dollar sign?
gotta be in backticks.
Why are you not happy there? What am I missing?
Yeah, I don't think it likes them.
Yeah. Put the quote. Well, one quote's outside the curly brackets and one quote's inside the curly brackets.
You got, yeah.
Then this one. Do I have to do a computed value? It does not like.
So question
Double
iterator, question and line.
Let's just make a new variable.
Oh, it doesn't like the mixing of, I think I've run into a problem, it doesn't like the mixing of different type of strings. So I had to do it outside of it and put a string outside of it and then add the string inside.
In view?
In view, yep. So
Ah,
it's saying it doesn't like logic here. Because remember, this actually isn't a function. So it's not actually JavaScript here. It's JavaScript, but it's not. So what we have to do is add a method, get image URL. We'll call this poster path.
So there are shortcomings.
What?
There are shortcomings.
It's not perfect. And then we're going to return. Nope. And then up here, source equals get image URL movie.poster path.
Is that a vbind?
No, there's a type of movie.
So it's a shorthand to do that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, move. Yep. Bam.
So now you can do column reverse.
I'm out on view. I was way too much to put a picture of it.
And then what do you want to do, Gus?
Column reverse. Just to confront.
Just because we can.
Just because we're gonna.
How we're gonna get the top 20?
Column reverse.
Reverse column.
Oh, that's because that's
A line.
no released.
Oh yeah, you change it inside. Yeah.
Yep.
Then,
There we go. So yeah, now we have the pictures.
You have to dot reverse the array.
the whole thing.
Let's do it.
That'll work, man.
Yeah. So this right here is just saying, hey, I'm computing this attribute. That's what that colon is saying. It's saying, hey, this attribute that's usually an HTML attribute source, I'm actually creating it dynamically. So I'm doing something called binding it. So now I'm going to bind it to whatever's happening. This is a shortcut to vbind
Why do you have to bind a function?
because it's computed.
Again?
Because it's dynamic.
Because it's dynamic.
Oh, because that's poster path.
Yeah.
If it didn't have a poster path, a parameter, you wouldn't have to bind it.
Right.
Okay.
So what are you binding? I guess that's what I'm trying to understand.
The result of the get image URL to that source tag.
So it doesn't like string interpolation.
Right. Because remember, this isn't a function like it is in React. This is just a template. That's all.
You're probably gonna get to this, but can we take that and make it a component?
We can.
Because I want to see it props.
Yeah.
That's not working.
By the way, the shortcut was
Yeah,
just the colon.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
shortcut
V
was-
just the colon.
It's what?
So it's just colon. B, just colon.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. Ask that question at 2. Because it is noon. We hit our time limit, and I
Are we
respect it.
fetching for more?
What?
Are we fetching for more?
We'll fetch for more, and we'll do everything. So anyway, it's noon. Homework will be up at the end of lunch. It's going to be a Vue project, of course. Probably something to do with APIs.
Problem.
Probably.
But we're betting, may not be betting on it.
I feel good. I feel good.
I feel good.
Other than that, I'll see y'all at 2.
I know. I like maps.
I'm just getting